All right, welcome everybody to the greatest show alive. I will go ahead and get the session kicked off. We will start on time, end on time. I am your session host, a Jamf employee, Ashley Beard, Product Management. I am here to run around the room, especially when the Q&A session starts. I'm also here to introduce the speaker, but I have assistants, so I will pass the microphone over.
Thank you, thank you. All right, JNUC, you guys ready? Come on, let's hear it! Woo! All right, so my name is Blake Wiesner. I am the Senior IT Endpoint Manager at Arctic Wolf. Today, we're very excited to unveil the greatest show in application patch management, an exclusive behind-the-scenes look into our approach to this never-ending saga. Leading us through this incredible journey is someone who needs no introduction, but deserves one nonetheless. They have been with Arctic Wolf for over 5 years now, and they were our very first US-based IT employee. Their expertise and dedication have made them a vital part of the endpoint team, leading us through every initiative that we have for Apple at Arctic Wolf. In the spirit of Nashville, what I want to do is if you have a beverage in your hand, please raise it up and please help me welcome Ryan Muskie to the stage. Woo!
Unfortunately, I have water today. I recognize a lot of those faces from the bar in the last 2 days. Woo! Woo! This is not going to be a normal keynote. I want you to make noise. I want you to have fun. I want you to wake up because y'all are sleepy from lunch. Those tacos were amazing, though, weren't they? So before we get into the circus, I want to give a little bit of a prelude. So before we actually had this show, Blake and I accidentally created a whole new patch system. 9 months ago, we had a conversation that said, hey, self-service doesn't work, and we don't want to pay for something. So now, in the last 9 months, we have 117 GitHub commits, 27 pull requests with a 2-up peer review on each request, over 5,000 lines of code changed in the last 9 months, 26 user feedback requests that ended up in 11 different releases with new features every time. This software was tested across 4 different test groups with 80 people. And I wouldn't be here today if it weren't for all those testers, users, and all that feedback, and all my guys here reviewing my code. Woo! So I want to say thank you to the endpoint team, to all of the testers, and everyone here today. JNUC 2024. Woo! So let's get into it. Blake gave me a great introduction, but I'm Ryan Muskie, and I'm Ryan. That's how everyone kind of feels when you have patches available on your computer. And notice how all the notifications went away. I'll definitely remember to update all of those apps later. So I've been with Arctic Wolf for 5 years. I'm now the endpoint engineer. I'm in charge of the Mac Apple side of the shop. My first experience with Jamf was a cracked version of Casper Imaging Suite when I was a teenager. I was so bored, and I wanted to know, hey, what's this cool thing called Composer? And man, that made my life so much easier. So let's go ahead and get into the circus. I will be your ringmaster right now, and I would love to introduce our circus attendees. So right off the bat, we have 4 main groups of attendees that are always at this patch circus. And the first one's security. And they want updates and patches as fast as possible on all of the machines to keep them secure. Then you have our service team as another group of attendees. And they want them as easy as possible. They really love those tickets. Hey, my Chrome won't update. It's the best ticket you'll ever get in the world. And then you have management. Management loves updating their computer, right? Well, management just wants the patches as cheap as possible, let's be honest. And then we have the beautiful, wonderful end users, which we wouldn't be here if we didn't have them. And let's be honest, they don't want any of the patches. They're not going to do any of them. So what circus acts exist to entertain these amazing attendees right here? Well, the first circus act to exist is self-service patch titles. It's ready out of the box, so you can kind of mold it into what you want. You can't really customize it too much. But there's the dreaded phantom notification PI. Boo. If none of you know what the phantom notification PI is, you're lucky. But what that is when you go ahead and set update reminders in self-service, there is a chance it's going to notify your end user for the rest of the time that app's installed on their computer, regardless of what version it is. Here's a nice little zoom in of it. What an actual update is, what a phantom notification is. And the reason I bring this up is this is actually special this year, JNUC 2024. Happy birthday to this PI. It's actually 10 years old today. Woo! Yeah, cake for everyone, I wish. Well, what other Circus apps exist? Well, we have the wonderful new Jamf app installers, which are really nice. It's ready out of the box. You don't have to really set anything up. You just say, hey, I want to update Slack, I want to update Chrome, just keep it up to date. And it works. But the problem is there's not customization. I can't write a paragraph for the users that need the help. And then on top of that, it doesn't support every application, which is what your security team's going to want, your management team's going to want, and all of your Mac admins are going to want. So what's another option? Well, the other act that exists is software as a service. We all love paying for our patches, but this kind of defeats that as cheap as possible for patches. It doesn't support every app. And it tends to just be someone's private AutoPkg server in their closet. So, well, there's a couple acts that unfortunately we had to cut this year. Of those acts, the first one that we had to cut is because of me. You can see I'm very fit and in shape. One of the ways that we were thinking of doing updates was just a USB drive and running around to all of our users. But as you can tell, I'm not much of a runner. And then the second act, unfortunately, HR shot down. We said getting people electrified about patches was not a great idea. I think it would have been very advertised very well. And the only thing worse than tasing your end users is sending out company-wide email reminders. We love those. But there's one more act, right? We didn't talk about it yet. But that act is just build it yourself, right? It's not that hard. You only need to have something that can support every app in your org, makes updates and patches easy, encourages your end users to actually update their computer, and costs nothing. Okay, maybe $15 for that pizza party if you're at the end of it. This is easy. At the end of this, I'm either going to be the best magician or the world's tallest clown. So where do we start? Well, I'm more of a procrastinator. I think a lot of coders are procrastinators. I think we need a really catchy name, right? You need to get that buy-in from management. They really need to agree with you. And we had Pumpkin, patch update management program that kills IT networks. I don't think that one's going to work. And we have OMP, one more patch. It's just one more, constantly, especially if you have Chrome installed. And then I was thinking, oh, do we go into the Zoomer humor? What about Patchapalooza, Patchy McPatchface? And I was like, no, I work at a company where we all howl when we have good sales, when we have great days. So I was like, you know what? We could do Patch Update Manager, and what's it for? It's for Apple computers. So we could call it Puma. And there you go. Now we have another cat. We have our wolf. It's perfect. Well, in order to get that pizza party budget, we need some sort of icon that we can show leadership and be like, hey, this is what it looks like for Arctic Wolf when we make this. And then this is our Puma icon. Enough procrastination, though. That pizza party budget is now secured. So what acts do we actually have to build it ourselves? If you're in the Mac admins community, you'll be familiar with all these, especially the first one. It's why we're here today. We have Jamf Pro, the ringmaster. What do I mean by the ringmaster? Jamf Pro is customizable, has amazing API calls. It's able to run policies, any type of script you want to run on the machine, and then it's able to install packages for you. Well, how do we get those packages? That's the next part. The magician is AutoPkg. AutoPkg is an amazing GitHub project. Please check it out if you haven't. It's customizable. It can grab just about any application off the internet for you. It's automated. Who here likes packaging apps? Exactly. Nobody rose their hand. And it can run on a Mac, so that helps with that zero budget thing. We have a lot of those. And then the last thing is cool. You got Jamf Pro, you got AutoPkg. How do you encourage your end user to actually update the app on their computer? I can't just, hey, Chrome needs an update, kill it and start it back up. I mean, I think we all would like to do that. But that's where SwiftDialog comes in, the showstopper. Makes customizable, beautiful, user-facing UI. We can go ahead and list out the apps. We can go ahead and tell them what's going. We can even brand it for our company. So how do we tie all these tools together? It's one word. P-lists. Everyone loves P-lists. We love working at P-lists. OK, how does it really work? Enough memes for now. So first off, we're actually going to go ahead and start with AutoPkg. So AutoPkg is going to go ahead and grab that newest app package for us. It's going to generate a script, too, that we can go ahead and pick up later that's going to work on a plist file for us. Well, now that we have a package and we have a script that'll tell us information about that package, how do we get it into Jamf? Well, that's another amazing open source project, Jamf Uploader. So we can go ahead and take that package from AutoPkg, put it into Jamf Uploader, and then Jamf Uploader can go ahead and put it in Jamf Pro. Now that we have everything in Jamf Pro, we need to figure out how to get it to the user, right? We can't just put all the apps on their computer and say, good luck, as much as we'd love to some days. So that's where we go ahead and we're going to put that plist information on the machine for the end user. And then with that plist information on the machine, we're going to go ahead and be able to pick it up with Puma. And that way Puma can have its own code base. And then all of our patches will have their own specific plist with the information about the app and what Puma needs to do when it sees that info. And then the end result, I'll give you a little sneak peek here, is this beautiful dialog box for our end users. And it can go ahead and list out every single application. It's going to even tell you when that patch is going to be enforced. Really nice for the end user. So let's go ahead, let's rewind a little bit. What are we actually doing with the AutoPkg side? So AutoPkg with Jamf Uploader. This is going to go ahead and upload that new app package for us. It's going to actually create a self-service template, so we always have that newest app in self-service for the end users. And it's going to go ahead and upload that script that's going to just modify a plist file. It's going to go create a labeled dictionary with the information for that app. So what does it look like? What's this local plist on the machine? Well, there we go. It's a nice little info blurb. That's Google Chrome. So when we go through this, we have the path to where we're looking for an application, because we already installed it for them. We know where to look for it. We have that custom policy trigger from that self-service policy we made. And then we have the new version that AutoPkg just built. So that part's pretty self-explanatory. That's what you kind of need to patch the app. So you'll notice I left out a couple tags there. So what about critical, silent mode, and a timestamp? Let's start with a timestamp. This is your Unix timestamp of when the recipe ran and it uploaded to Jamf. So now you know when that package started existing in your Jamf repo. This timestamp is used in our environment to go ahead and allow apps to be recommended for a week or two and then automatically enforce some critical and give the user a 15-minute window and enforce that update so they don't fall behind. Which translates really nicely over to the critical variable. So you'll notice that that's a true-false flag. This overrides any configured deadline in our Puma script. And the reason it does this is mainly for apps that need to be maintained constantly. Any in-house stuff that we have, we set it as critical, and then every time it runs, it'll ignore all of the other settings and just patch it automatically within that 15-minute window. And last but not least, we have silent mode. But it's an integer, it's not a Boolean. So currently it only supports 0 and 1. We always have a huge feature timeline. Looking at you, Chris. So right now you can set it to 0, and basically silent mode isn't supported. But if you set it to 1, if Puma runs and that app isn't currently open on the machine, it's going to go ahead and just update it in the background for the end user. It's not going to notify them. It's not going to tell them anything. They'll get a little tiny notification up in the top right corner that says, hey, Chrome's being patched currently. Please wait till it finishes. We have future plans for menu bar items because we know end users don't know how to quit a menu bar app to save their life. So 2 and 3 will be eventually supported that can force updates silently or force updates while the application's still active. So what does it take for an AutoPkg recipe and Puma, and what does it all look like when it's all together? Well, we have a great example recipe here. I wrote it in YAML, so you don't have to all try to translateplists live on a screen. But this recipe needs a parent recipe that gives it a package. It's the first thing. And now we're getting into we're in the technical part. Who's asleep? Is anyone sleeping yet? Don't worry, we'll get to video demos and you can start snoring at that point. It's all good. So this is an example recipe that does everything here. This is going to do that self-service policy, and it's going to go ahead and do that plist updater script for you. So the first part, if we go ahead and look at it, ooh, fancy transitions, right? So what this does is this is going to go ahead and create that self-service policy for us. It's going to go ahead and also create a policy trigger for us, so we're able to know that variable and we can call back on it. And it does this all automatically. Well, then we have the other part. There we go. Took 2 tries. So this part is actually the plist updater. So this is gathering all of the information to create that local plist for each specific application. Instead of having to write a custom script for Chrome, a custom script for Slack, a custom script for every single app here we use, we made a template that we can use inside of AutoPkg. And then AutoPkg can go ahead and fill out that template, then upload it to Jamf and run it for each application. And then it'll update every time there's a new app. It'll just overwrite the old script with the new version information, the new timestamp information, and even if we change the self-service trigger, it'll upload that and change it for us too. So what does the script template look like? So right here, the scripts are variables that get replaced during AutoPkg's recipe execution. So we can easily customize the plist data for each application without having to rewrite every single script. And this will run on machines via a Jamf Pro policy that'll create or modify the plist based on what state it finds it in. And it'll fill in the app data in one giant plist rather than making 15 plists because you have 15 different app updates. So what does multiple apps look like on that local plist file? So right here, we have it separated. We got 2 different apps here, and each app has its own labeled dictionary array that basically holds all of the data for that application. And Puma is smart enough to know that if it's missing app data or anything like that from a prior patch, that it'll actually remove it and then wait for the plist updater to go ahead and refill it next time it runs on the machine. So now that we have a plist full of updates, for an end user, they're not going to update their computer if we show them this. So what's next? Well, that's where Puma comes in. So the patch update manager for Apple. So right now, it's pretty stupid. It doesn't do much. But if that plist file is there, it's going to go ahead and parse out all of those apps, versions, settings. It's going to check if apps aren't running. It's going to show the users that need updates based on the configuration setting. We'll get to that soon. So here we can go ahead and see Puma with debug logging enabled. It's going to go ahead and output all of the data that we have for that specific application. And it's going to let us know what it's all set to, along with what's installed on the user's computer, so it can compare the 2 versions. So this is pretty awesome. We can go ahead and update computers now. Well, we got to configure Puma first. So how do we do that? Well, with Jamf Pro. That's why we're all here, right? So super easy configuration. I wanted, especially Chris down there, but our Mac admins, I wanted to make it easy for them to set it up and be able to target specific groups with different configurations and different settings for each basically category we have of apps and users in our company. So it uses the Jamf JSON schema manifest, and it allows you to paste that in and set it up with nice little switches and everything. And then the policy is just a script with a trigger for Puma, and we can run that once a day, once a week, however often we want it to run, but the configuration will take care of what it's supposed to do on the day that it runs. So let's go ahead and dive into that configuration real quick. So, nope, wrong button. Come on. There we go. So look at that, beautiful, super easy, makes it super simple to set up. Let's go ahead and do a quick video demo of how to set it up and how easy it is to set for any group in our org. Grab some water. So right here, we can see that we're setting up a configuration profile. Everyone makes those. I hope you do. Then we're going to go ahead and create a preference domain for a custom app for com.awn.endpoint.puma. And we have a bunch of different options that we have here that are going to populate as soon as we go ahead and paste in that JSON manifest. So some of the configuration options that we built into it so we can kind of test it and work on it as we go is that we have debug mode that you can turn on and off. That actually adds about 10 times more log output, so you can figure out where it's breaking or what's going on with it. We have stored versions is something that was an ask from one of our departments, which allows you to have longer deadlines for your critical updates, but it maintains that timestamp from the first out-of-date version that that endpoint saw. You can enable or disable silent mode to the group you're dropping this to. You can define a separate updates available plist if you have a test group that you're testing some new apps on. We even tested and messed with a little bit having support app up in the menu bar, so we can go ahead and notify users a little quietly with a little orange dot in their menu bar. We have different brand icons and brand headers because our R&D teams like to have fancy little icons every once in a while. We even have a customizable patch delay so we don't accidentally CrowdStrike our entire company. It'll wait a couple hours before it deploys to everybody. Then we have a custom defined patch enforcement deadline. You have a pilot user file, which is really cool. That actually is what the patch delay uses. You just drop a file onto a computer anywhere. You can run a touch command and just leave a file somewhere. If the user has that file, it's going to go ahead and skip any timers. Every update becomes critical. They're your test fleet. And then we even added recently some support for user preferences. We figured if we're going to encourage our end users to update, the way that I like my updates may not be the same way that we want our end users to update. So we have options to enable notification center, so it won't use SwiftDialog. We have the ability to enable or disable meeting detection, so if you don't want updates during your Zoom or whatever call you have, you can go ahead and turn that on or off. You can go ahead and override critical updates to appear during meetings. And then we even have the ability to disable meeting or enable meeting reminders. So if you're on a meeting, you don't want updates, but maybe I want a small notification that says, hey, you have 10 updates. They're going to wait for you, and they'll be ready when you're done with your meeting. So on top of that, user preferences, we also have customizable help menu text for different departments, different testing. Very basic support for Markdown in that. And then we have a background and foreground scan schedule that you can define for your group, so you can run Puma every single day, but maybe on Mondays it only runs in the background, checks for apps that are closed. And then maybe on Wednesdays you want it to pop up and show every single app on the computer. So how do we run Puma? Well, you can do a couple different things. The easiest way to run it right now is just as a policy with a script payload. On automatic check-in, we do it once a day. We try to time it. We have the restriction from about noon till about 3, because we don't want you getting updates at like 6 p.m. if you're working late into the night. It also supports running from self-service as the same script. I didn't want to have to rewrite a whole script to run from self-service, to have a different UI and make it look pretty for someone running. So if it runs from self-service, it'll actually detect that self-service spawned that, and then it'll go ahead and remove any restrictions of the scan schedule defined by the configuration profile. And then it'll actually, if you have no updates, it'll show you a pretty little no update screen. It's very nice. And then from there, well, what does Puma look like? Well, these are those video demos. I hope you're not asleep yet. We're getting close. Bear with me. So here we go. This is a simulated demo. It's a lot sped up and everything here. This is a terrible user, a bunch of apps out of date on purpose. But right here, we're seeing the background scan schedule. This is what the user sees. Pops up on top of everything on their screen, but it is movable, and you can close the window. But what it's going to do is it's going to go ahead and check the whole computer before it even shows them this to see if that plist, any of the apps that are out of date, are any open. And if there's any that are open, it's going to put those in a different group, and then it's going to say any are closed. If they're closed, it's going to go ahead and just chug through every single one as fast as possible, so then the user's up to date, compliant, and then those apps are ready to go. So this user's been waiting too long, so they actually have a bunch of critical updates, so they can't delay these updates anymore. It'll actually have a 15-minute timer. If that 15-minute timer hits or they force close this, it's going to go ahead and quit all those apps and run through it. There's our custom help menu. If they're like, what is this dialog? Why is it here? And then, come on, demo me a little faster. We're losing them. And then you can also customize the naming and that background there too, I think is what we're showing off here in the demo. But then you go ahead and click it, you get that same pop-up. That can be user configured to use Notification Center if users are like, I don't like this giant block, especially if you have this 4x3 VM window. It takes up a lot of screen real estate. But it's going to go ahead and run through each application. And now if any of those apps were open on this screen, which unfortunately in this demo they're not, it'll actually reopen the app and try to restore the session of a saved state if it's possible to. Works really good with Firefox, Chrome, we don't talk about. So why show off Patch Update Manager? Why show off Puma to everyone here and talk about what we did at Arctic Wolf? Well, I'm very excited to say and very lucky to say after a very long, too many meetings with legal, the Patch Update Manager for Apple is available for today. It has an Apache 2.0 license, and it's available at RTKWLF-IT Puma-Public. And that's the end of the presentation. I'll switch to the Q&A slide once everyone puts their phones down. I see you're all taking photos. Any questions?
Yes, if there are any questions, raise your hand and I will make it to you as quickly as I can. Oh, I was just in the back. Can you meet me halfway? Thank you.
So I got a question. I see that this works in the user space. What if you have devices that are one-to-many?
Can you crank him? I can't hear him from here.
Okay. My question is that I see that this is using on user spaces, like one-to-one. How does this work when you have many users on a computer, like many-to-one?
When you have many users on a computer, it'll still run. The user-based configuration and stuff like that will actually be based off the machine itself. So when you set it, it'll actually be based on whatever you have the computer profile installed on the machine. We don't have multi-use devices, so all of our development into this was built to support basically one-to-one machines.
Could we set this up so when a user logs out, Puma runs?
There definitely, you could figure out a logout action or script to be able to run this policy, so then it's running as an elevated permission and could install the apps when the user runs out. But that's the beauty of open source.
Awesome, thanks.
More questions? Raise your hand, please.
So with something like Puma, one of the big challenges that we've faced are with kind of the modern app design of like the Adobe Creative Clouds or the IDEA IntelliJs out there, where users may have multiple versions because a certain feature is on version 2022 versus 2023. Does this have support for multiple versions of the same that they don't want patched so that we can leave the older versions there?
No, that's an awesome question about the different application versions. So the way that we handle that is, since we're actually not looking for the bundle ID, which would just always patch Photoshop, like it wouldn't care what version it is, we went and switched to the direct path of the app itself. So we'll go ahead and grab Adobe Creative Cloud 2022, 2023, and they'll have different patch policies that do different actions in that plist script. So then we can have multiple versions on a machine and it maintains those versions.
Awesome, thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else? Ryan, I think you killed it.
Hi, first of all, I love your program. So I was wondering, what led you to use AutoPkg over something like Installamator?
So AutoPkg, we went with AutoPkg because of the version control, and we already had AutoPkg set up for maintaining our packages by uploading them to Jamf. Our problem that we were dealing with was the patch titles were very finicky to deal with, where if you do AutoPkg and then try to update a patch title, there's about anywhere from 7 to 4 minute sync window before Jamf gets it. So then if you try to upload the package to that patch reference, it's going to go ahead and fail because that version doesn't exist for that patch title. If we didn't have AutoPkg already set up, I would have definitely looked into Installamator. But once again, that's the beauty of open source. Feel free to take a crack at it and fork the repo.
More questions?
You ready for a vacation?
Always. Thank you all. You've been great.